What is up, YouTube? It's time for Tech Time, and here at Tech Time we bring you all your tech all the time. So if that's something that interests you, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with our weekly content. Now, I wasn't going to make a video about the iPhones, but I just couldn't resist it, so I figured I'd drop you guys a video on my opinions on the whole iPhone thing. There's a lot of, craziness going on around it. A lot of people saying it's too high of a price for these phones. It's just getting really out of control. And then the other people saying that the lower tier model at $750 is, really a waste. Nobody should buy it. The screen resolution is crap. And the list goes on and on and on. So I want to give my opinion on what I feel on the whole situation. And we're going to get into that right after this. So let's get into some of the specs on these new iPhones. This year you have three models. You have the iPhone XS, the iPhone XS Max, and the iPhone XR. And they're all written out XR, XS, and XS Max. The X obviously stands for 10. It's a Roman numeral. So it's, looks a little weird. It's called XS, XS Max, and XR. So those are what you got going this year. All of these options come with the new A12 Bionic chip, which is going to be crazy fast. They're saying better graphics processing. You get a new neural engine that's going to help with machine learning and things like that. So it's going to be crazy fast. Software, you get iOS 12, which is also available on the older models, but that's going to pretty much coincide with the new Apple A12 Bionic chip, and it's going to run super smooth. It's optimized perfectly for their software, and that's what makes iOS, one of a kind. It really is top of the line when it comes to performance and all of that. It's just so fast, and the optimization is just great. Apps are going to work well on it. It's just, you're going to get what you get. It's just a smooth running system. So the chip is going to be super fast. You're also getting updated Face ID this year. It's supposed to be a little bit faster. You're getting an updated front-facing camera, 7 megapixel. You're getting updated rear, 12 megapixel camera, and that's also supposed to give you new HDR, better slow motion, better face detection and things like that, better portrait mode with depth tracking. So now you can change that afterwards. You can change the f-stops for portrait mode, so it's similar to like live focus, where you can change the blur in the background, but this actually shows a little bit of a depth from what I've seen, so that looks like it's going to be a pretty cool feature. So you have a lot of options going on in the camera department, and from some of the pictures that I've seen so far and reviews, it looks like it's going to be one of the top cameras in the market, which Apple always seems to produce at least a top 5 camera every year anyways, so it shouldn't be any surprise. So let's get into some of the specs on these new iPhones. This year you have three models. You have the iPhone XS, the iPhone XS Max, and the iPhone XR. And they're all written out XR, XS, and XS Max. The X obviously stands for 10. It's a Roman numeral. So it's, looks a little weird. It's called XS, XS Max, and XR. So those are what you got going this year. All of these options come with the new A12 Bionic chip, which is going to be crazy fast. They're saying better graphics processing. You get a new neural engine that's going to help with machine learning and things like that. So it's going to be crazy fast. Software, you get iOS 12, which is also available on the older models, but that's going to pretty much coincide with the new Apple A12 Bionic chip, and it's going to run super smooth. It's optimized perfectly for their software, and that's what makes iOS, one of a kind. It really is top of the line when it comes to performance and all of that. It's just so fast, and the optimization is just great. Apps are going to work well on it. It's just, you're going to get what you get. It's just a smooth running system. So the chip is going to be super fast. You're also getting updated Face ID this year. It's supposed to be a little bit faster. You're getting an updated front-facing camera, 7 megapixel. You're getting updated rear, 12 megapixel camera, and that's also supposed to give you new HDR, better slow motion, better face detection and things like that, better portrait mode with depth tracking. So now you can change that afterwards. You can change the f-stops for portrait mode, so it's similar to like live focus, where you can change the blur in the background, but this actually shows a little bit of a depth from what I've seen, so that looks like it's going to be a pretty cool feature. So you have a lot of options going on in the camera department, and from some of the pictures that I've seen so far and reviews, it looks like it's going to be one of the top cameras on the market, which Apple always seems to produce at least a top 5 camera every year anyways, so it shouldn't be any surprise. Other differences are you're getting IP68 water and dust resistance this year, so that's a jump up from what you did have last year with IP67. Not a huge difference, but it's definitely going to give you a little bit more sense of security. You're also getting OLED screens on both of the 5.8 inch, which is the iPhone XS, and the 6.5 inch, which is the XS Max. And from what I've seen so far, the software isn't in tune with the new phone, so you're going to see some kind of issues in the beginning, but I'm thinking once people start to really pick up their phones from pre-order, I'm going to expect to see some kind of an update, and that should just change everything, and everything should be optimized after that. I'm pretty sure everything will go as planned. Apple's pretty good at pushing out updates and things like that, so you should be pretty good with that. Battery life on the both, they released the specs finally, and the iPhone XS, the battery is actually a little bit smaller, so they're giving you a smaller battery, but they're saying that you can get a half hour longer of battery life. Apple's battery life hasn't been the best. Their standby time is great, but when you're running the phone, it hasn't been the best. And with these small batteries, I think it's like a 2700 milliamp hour, somewhere in that line for the XS. I don't expect it to be mind-blowing, but we'll see what happens. Software can really, make a big difference. And then with the XS Max, you're expecting what they say, an hour and a half of better battery life over what last year's 10 was. But you didn't have a Max version last year, so you expect a bigger phone, you're going to have a bigger battery, but you're also going to push a bigger screen. I'm very tempted to see the screens because I don't believe they're using Samsung screens this year. From what was rumored that they were going to be going with some type of an LG screen. But Apple will take that, they'll tune it themselves, and they'll make it their own. So you shouldn't have the quality control issues that you have with most LG phones and their screens that have been coming out recently on the Google Pixel 2 XL, the LG G7, the V30 with the light bleed and things like that. You shouldn't have any issues like that on the Apple phones because they take care of their own quality control issues. So pretty much this year, the differences between the 10 and the XS and the XS Max are battery life, new processor, and new cameras. Other than that, fairly much the same phone. So if you're coming from a 10, should you upgrade? The answer is no. Apple puts these phones out for people to upgrade every couple of years. They expect people to keep their phones for a certain amount of years. Most people hang on to an iPhone for at least 2 to 3 years from what I've seen, unless you're a real techie or someone that's interested in staying up to date with the lifestyle brand that Apple's now becoming, and updating and having the newest and greatest Apple phone out there. Other than that, the average consumer is only upgrading like 2 to 3 years. It seems like most people are coming from 6S to 7s now and looking for an upgrade. Some people are at 8s and maybe looking for an upgrade, but I think most people at the 8 are probably going to stick with what they have. I know my girlfriend has an 8, and she is interested in the 6S Max, the XS Max, but she's kind of holding off because the price is really, really high on that phone. And that's another thing, the price. So now you're getting $1,000 for the XS and $1,100 starting price for the XS Max. It goes upwards of $1,450 for the XS Max, and I think it's $1,250 for the XS. I hate saying these names, really friggin' stupid, but it's the way it is. I personally believe the prices are too high. I think the prices are too high around the board, and it's just going to go higher and higher and higher. I think Apple sets the standard for pricing, and then people kind of try to keep up with that, and it's almost a subconscious thing that people see phone prices, and if the phone price isn't the same as what you're seeing with the iPhone, like the new Samsungs, if they drop and they're $300 cheaper than the iPhone, subconsciously the average consumer is thinking, this phone isn't as good as the new iPhone because it's $300 cheaper. Why is it $300 cheaper? It obviously isn't as good. So now you've seen Samsung matching their prices with the iPhones. The Galaxy Note 8, 9 that just dropped is actually $1,000 now starting price, and it could go upwards of $1,200 also. So the prices are going crazy with these new phones. It is getting to a point where it's like, when is this going to stop? And it doesn't look like it's going to stop anytime soon. Next year, I think the prices are just going to obviously get higher and higher. Just, with anything, price of living, inflation, things go up. But the smartphone market is just going up and up and up. It's getting crazy. We'll get a little music playing on my phone. So that's another thing to consider. You know, is it worth an upgrade? Some carrier plans will give you an upgrade every year on their certain Apple plans that they have, or if T-Mobile has a jump program, you can jump. But there are big down payments or big monthly payments that you got to consider with that. So you might want to take a step back. I'm not hating Apple for it. They're becoming more of a lifestyle brand now. The only problem is they're not giving the cheaper price phones. Like, they don't have the 5C, which was kind of a fail back when it happened, but they're not pushing out a real cheap version of a phone. They don't have the SE2 that was rumored to be coming out. They don't have a small variant anymore. So I have talked to some friends and family, and people that wanted a real small phone are now looking for options in the Android space. So that's a problem, I think, for Apple in itself, is that they don't have a small form factor anymore. Yeah, the 5.8-inch 10S is small because it's all screen with a notch and stuff, but it's not small enough. People want smaller. There's certain people out there that don't want a big phone. You know, women, certain types of certain men, things like that. They want a smaller phone. They don't want to carry around a huge phone in their pocket or whatever it may be. They're used to either coming from like a flip phone years ago, a couple of years ago, and they maybe just transitioned over and they want that smaller form factor. Right now, you're not going to get that with Apple, so you got to look elsewhere. Maybe Sony, Google Pixel 2 is a smaller phone, things like that. So you got to look in that type of area. And I've noticed some friends and family actually been asking about that, where they can get a smaller form factor. That's not Apple. Other than that, going back to price, this year they do have the 10R, and that is their budget version, and it is actually not much of a budget. It's $750, and what you're getting is you're getting a 720p resolution. It's actually a little bit bumped up from that, the exact specs of it. You're getting the same A12 Bionic chip, getting the same camera setup, but not dual. You're getting just a single 12 megapixel camera, but you can still do portrait mode and things like that with software, so that shouldn't be a problem. You get the front-facing camera, you're getting Face ID, and you're not getting the 3D touch. You're getting some kind of like a haptic touch. But most people I know that use iPhones regularly don't even use 3D touch that often. Some people do, some people don't. That's going to be something you have to figure out. It is a 6.1 LCD screen. Not sure who's providing the screen, but the resolution has been the big key factor that everybody's talking about. It's not worth that price at $750 with that resolution. Now, if you break it out spec for spec at that price range, you can get a Samsung Galaxy S9. You can get a Google Pixel 2 XL. You can get an LG G7. You can get OnePlus 6 and probably the 6T that's about to drop. So there's a lot of options out there. And if you look at the screen on paper, they all have higher resolution. Some 3-4 times as much resolution. So is it an issue? And I say it is on paper, but in real life I don't think it is. I think most of the iPhone average consumers aren't going to care about resolution on paper. Apple's always done a great job of making really, really nice screens, saturated, vibrant colors, and most of them have been 720p resolution. The smaller form factors on these phones over the years have always had a 720p resolution in the last few years. So I don't think it's anything new. I don't think most consumers will even be bothered by it. Nowadays with cell phone carriers pushing out unlimited plans, but most of the video is capped at a 480p resolution anyways, so that won't affect quality on your smartphone. When you're at home on Wi-Fi, things like that, yeah, you might want to bump it up, but 720p is going to be fine for the average consumer. Me personally, would I want to pay money for a 720p resolution phone when there's other options out there? No, but I'm a techie and I kind of care about specs like that, and I know that there's better options for my money, for me personally, because I'm not vested in the Apple ecosystem. I don't really care about iMessage. Yeah, it's awesome. I wish I had it on Android, but they don't. They're working on things. One day it will get there. Maybe it will. Maybe it won't. Who knows? But I'm not vested in the Apple ecosystem like some people are. Some people just want Apple. Everybody has Apple. Their friends have Apple. Their family has Apple. They need to learn something from somebody. They can just ask anybody who's around them to teach them something on their iPhone. So I don't think it's going to be a huge issue. I think most people are probably going to jump to this phone because it's cheaper. And Apple did that on purpose by releasing it a month later because they want to try to scoop up all the sales that they can and then allow people to get access to the 10R. Other than that, I think they could have put a 1080p screen on it, but they weren't going to do that because how else are they going to differentiate themselves from the 10s? Yeah, the OLED screen and the dual cameras, but maybe that wouldn't have been enough with the screen resolution, so they dropped the screen resolution and give you an LCD screen. I think it's going to be okay. I don't think it's going to be a big issue. I think the average consumer gets it in their hands, never going to notice. It's really not going to make a difference to them whatsoever, especially because it looks like the newer phones. Got the notch, has that look, gets a new, style. So people aren't going to really notice. They're not going to care when they're out and they show their friends, I got a new iPhone. Everyone's going to, wow, that's nice, it looks great. And they don't know the difference. They really don't. And that's, the problem with a lot of us techies. We go crazy because we understand it, but the average consumer is really not understanding it. They've been rocking an iPhone 8, an iPhone 6S, an iPhone 7, an iPhone 5 with screen resolution that's, right on par with that, if not worse. And now the screen that you're going to get on this phone, I believe, is going to be a lot better. It's going to be tuned better. It's actually a higher resolution than 720p. It's like, a strong 720p. It's like 1792 by 8 and change or whatever that is. So it's a nicer screen. And I think it's going to look good. They'll tune it well, and it shouldn't be no issues. For the money, it's going to be the right option. I think it's going to be a huge seller. A lot of people have stated that. And I think that's definitely going to be their big moneymaker this year. And then the Max. I think a lot of people are going to go for the Max because they want that bigger form factor. But there's not too much of a difference between these other phones, Oh, and then another option on the camera that I didn't mention earlier is now you can record in stereo sound. That's always been a thing with Apple lately, is the recording sound is not as good. Now you can record in stereo sound, so that should make a huge difference for people that are using these phones to record videos, content creations, and stuff like that. Should work out well. Just my opinion on the Apple phones, guys. I don't think it's as big of a deal. The price is crazy high, but I don't think there's much change in that. It's becoming a lifestyle brand. Apple's becoming a lifestyle brand, like people that go and buy a Louis Vuitton bag or things like that. It might not be the most well-constructed bag, but girls are going out and buying them. And if people are going and buying these Apple phones, they might not be the most well-constructed Apple phone, but they see celebrities rocking them. They see sports players rocking iPhones. Everybody has an iPhone. It's just the way it is. And it's taken a while for these other phones to go mainstream, like the G7s and the Pixels and the Samsungs and stuff like that. Yeah, these phones have a lot of sales. Most of them are overseas. And in the United States, Apple phones really dominate. Most of my friends and family have Apple phones. So I don't think it's going to be a problem this year. I think they're going to sell, have no problem selling, and I think that 10R is going to sell great, even with a 720p resolution. I might have one in hand eventually at one point to review, and when that happens, we'll see how it goes. Anyways, guys, that is my opinion on the new iPhones. Let me know down in the comments below if you're picking up the new iPhone, which model you're grabbing, what storage capacity you're going to pick up, and if you're grabbing a deal on it or whatnot. If you have any deals, let people know down in the comments below, because it's always great for other people to grab a deal. And until next time, I'll catch you later.